What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my every game I've ever played tier list. So this episode is going to be multiplayer and VR games. I don't play a lot of multiplayer games, so I couldn't put that category on its own, or else it would have just been a few games. And as you can see, even with VR games, it only ended up being, I think, 18. Yeah. So I definitely need to combine those two categories. Before we get started, though, let's go over the new tier list names for this episode. Starting off, for D tier, we have... For D tier, we have here an Among Us reference. It's not actually a thing that's said in the game, but it's something that the fan base says to each other, like to imply that someone's the imposter if they're acting suspicious. I really don't need to explain that. That game's so popular, I'm sure all of you are familiar with that term. For B tier here, we have default skin, which is just referring to people in Fortnite who haven't purchased a skin, because you're pretty much considered a bum if you had the default skin in that game. But I think that works good as a mid-tier name. For A tier, we have...
That's great. That's great.
And finally, in S tier, we have Butt Stallion, which is a diamond pony that poops out guns from Borderlands. I don't think I need to explain why that's the title of the S tier, so let's just go ahead and get started with Rocket League. I've played a decent amount of Rocket League. I'm not like a professional or anything. This is a very skill-based game. And again, I don't really play a lot of multiplayer games, so these might not be as in-depth as the platformers, because platformers are one of my favorite genres of games, so of course I'll be more familiar with those. But I know enough about Rocket League, I feel like, to put it on this list. But Rocket League is a very popular game, and you can see just by how much time certain people put into it that it's definitely a good multiplayer game, and even someone like me who's not really into that sort of thing, I had a great time playing this game. It's just... You're playing soccer in cars, basically, and you can fly around and do all kinds of crazy aerial stunts and stuff to hit the ball, and which I can't do any of that stuff, but I've seen people do it. It's pretty awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and start this as an A tier game. Again, I don't have much to say about it, but I did enjoy what I played of it, and I can tell that it's a pretty good multiplayer game. Okay, so Star Wars Battlefront 2, same situation. I played it a decent amount. I have enjoyed what I played. I never played the first one. But I know a lot of people hate these games because of like EA's scummy marketing ways. Like they have tons of microtransactions and all that kind of stuff. But if you avoid that stuff, I feel like it doesn't get in the way of the experience much. It's really cool being able to play as all the familiar characters from the franchise. There's all kinds of different game modes, from large-scale wars to like small-scale battles between Jedis. Again, not too much experience with this game. From what I've played, though, it's been pretty enjoyable, and from what I heard from other people, that they like this game a lot better than the first one, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in A tier as well. Okay, Super Hot VR. This game is a ton of fun. If you have an Oculus Quest especially, the wireless Oculus headset, this game is just perfect. It basically time moves when you do, so it allows you to do all kinds of crazy stuff like dodging bullets and just catching guns midair, and it's a ton of fun. You just feel like a badass action movie star, basically. But it's really a puzzle game disguised as a shooter, kind of, because you have to figure out the ways to move without yourself being shot, because whenever you move fast, they move fast. So you gotta make sure and keep an eye on all your surroundings, make sure no one's shooting a bullet at you. But yeah, this game's a ton of fun all the way through, and you even, after you beat the main game, you unlock all kinds of challenges that just give you a way to experience the game again in a more difficult way, test you some more. I would say this is an S tier VR game. It's pretty much one of the ones I most consistently come back to, and it just really takes advantage of the technology you're using.
Awesome.
Okay, Trover Saves the Universe. This is another VR game. This is one of my absolute favorite VR games I've ever played. It's definitely the funniest VR game I've ever played. It's made by Justin Roiland, one of the people behind Rick and Morty, and you can definitely see that in this game. The game is just hilarious the whole way through. It's got the signature Justin Roiland improv humor, where you can tell not everything was perfectly scripted. He was just kind of going off on tangents about... You can sit here and listen to these people in the game talk. If you can stay there for a solid like 20 minutes before their conversation will start to loop. So if you rush through this game, you'll be missing tons of dialogue, which also kind of sucks because it's hard not to just stand there and listen to it the whole time. So I spent a lot more time in this game than I'm sure a lot of people do. The gameplay's pretty great too. It has a unique perspective. You're called a chair Orpian, so you're sitting there stationary, with your VR headset, but you're looking at the person you're controlling. So it's kind of hard to explain, but it really works well. It's a unique perspective. But I'd highly recommend anybody who hasn't played this to play it, especially if you're a Rick and Morty fan. It's hilarious. So yeah, that's another S tier.
Awesome.
Alright, everyone is familiar with this one. We all know Fortnite by now. It became one of the most insanely popular games for a while. It's still fairly popular, although not as much as it was when it came out. There was a time where I got very into Fortnite. I would play it pretty much for hours each day with my friends, and we just had all kinds of fun with it. I know a lot of people hate it, a lot of people love this game, but it was fun at the time. I've gotten a little burnt out on it now because of just the amount of time I put into it back then. They've done a good job of consistently adding to it, but I've just kind of done everything I wanted to do in this game. It's not as bad as people say it is. It's not the best game ever either. I would say it belongs in B tier. It's a fun game, but once you've played it for a while, you can't really get back into the gameplay loop. It's pretty repetitive. I'm just now realizing I totally could have done Victory Royale for the S tier, but I'm fine. I like the Butt Stallion title. Okay, so Fall Guys is it's a fairly new multiplayer game. This one, I didn't like this game. I didn't get into it nearly as much as Fortnite. I liked it at first. The first few matches were fun. Sorry, but this game, I got tired of this game a lot faster than I did with Fortnite. Like, the mini games are fun, but they very quickly get old. And there are some mini games that just aren't fun to play at all, like the soccer one. I can't stand that one. And there's one where you have to steal each other's eggs and make sure your team has the most eggs, and it's just not fair because I feel like a lot of times you get out because your team dragged you down, and I don't know, it didn't feel like it was always worth playing. I mean, I really played this game for a solid like weekend, and then I never touched it again. So yeah, this one doesn't last very long. It's alright while it lasts, but I'm just gonna have to put that in C tier. Among Us is another game you've definitely heard of. It's still pretty popular, not as much as it was just a couple of months ago. I didn't really understand the hype for this game. I played it and I enjoyed it. I had fun playing it with my friends a few times. But, I mean, this game has already been made before, basically. Like, this concept, at least. Kind of like the Town of Salem concept, where there's, like, some murder and the rest of you are trying to figure out who it is. Sorry. But it is nice that it's on mobile and stuff, so you can have, like, a game like that to play on the go. But, I don't know, it's a fun game and everything. I just don't understand the hype behind it, so I think that'll be a B tier. It's a fun game for sure, just I feel like it's overhyped. Call of Duty Black Ops 2. This is the only Call of Duty that I've ever gotten into to the point where I feel like I know enough about it to put it on this list. I've played other Call of Duties. They're just not really my thing, but I did really enjoy this game back when I played it. I can't even say why. There's not really any justification for why I like this game more than any of the others. It's really just that I played it the most. That's probably the only reason. But I enjoyed the campaign. The zombies, in my opinion, are the best that they've ever been in the series. The multiplayer is a lot of fun too. But yeah, not much to say. I think I'll just put it in A tier. I think it's a great Call of Duty game, as little as my knowledge is on that series. Alright, so here's a franchise I'm a lot more familiar with. I included Borderlands 3 in multiplayer because it's definitely best enjoyed with friends. You can play it single player, but playing it with friends is definitely going to be the way to go. But starting with Borderlands 3, this is one of my, not my least favorite Borderlands game, but it's definitely lower on the list. There's a lot of things it did well. I think this one has the best exploration. Like, the maps are larger than they've ever been, and there's all kinds of just things to discover and everything. And I think that the guns are a lot more diverse, which helps, so you're not getting kind of just the same loot over and over. It has instanced loot, so when you're playing with friends, you each get your own drops. You don't have to fight over who gets the legendaries. But the story was just not really interesting at all to me. Of course, I didn't expect them to top Handsome Jack from Borderlands 2, but the villains really just weren't compelling to me at all. There's some characters like Ava who are just straight up annoying. But the comedy is still pretty much on point for the most part. Besides, like, the main villains, they're a little cringy sometimes. But I mean, the main characters we know, like, still have pretty clever humor and stuff, so I think it's a B tier. It's a pretty good Borderlands game, but it's definitely not the best. Okay, Borderlands 2, easily my favorite Borderlands game. This is the one I've put definitely like easily over 100 hours into. I don't know exactly how much, but between all the platforms I played this on, I've definitely surpassed that. This game gave birth to one of the most iconic video game villains of all time, Handsome Jack, where everyone I'm sure is familiar with him. He's just so hilarious. His voice actor is incredible at his job. He pops in to taunt you enough to where whenever you finally get to fight him in the end, it's just so satisfying to finally just get to kill him. One of the biggest improvements I think from Borderlands 1 is the environments in here are so much more diverse. Like there's all kinds of places to explore, whereas Borderlands 1 was pretty much just a wasteland the entire way through, which got a little old to look at it sometimes, but yeah, you know, it worked still. And the characters you play as go a lot deeper this time. Their skill trees, they have like their own action skills that are a lot more fun to use than in Borderlands 1. Basically everything that the Borderlands series is known for peaked in this game. The humor, the boss fights, the crazy amounts of loot, the ridiculous enemies, and their dialogue. This game for me is no question an S tier. This game is in my top 10 favorite games of all time, which I haven't sat down to make, but I know for sure that it would be in that list.
Awesome.
Now Borderlands 1, this is the last Borderlands game I played. I had already played all the others before I ever touched this one, and I expected not to like it because I thought it would be, you know, very primitive in comparison, and it was, but part of it I think has to do with the situation. Me and my cousin stayed up all night playing this game, like 2 sessions. We beat the game in like 2 different sessions, and we just like were having a blast the entire way through. The missions are all pretty repetitive. The world gets boring to look at times, but for some reason it is just so addictive. Like they know how to keep it fun going through that same gameplay loop over and over. It's just so satisfying to level up. It's so satisfying to get new loot that's only a little bit better than the one you already had. One thing I will say though is the story is almost non-existent here, which I know is not the main focus of Borderlands, but it definitely helps, as you can see in Borderlands 2. But yeah, there's basically not much of a story here. There is a story technically, but it's not brought up a lot until like the very beginning and the very end. And it has a really anticlimactic final boss and ending, so yeah, that takes it down a notch. I would still say it's an A tier game though. I like Borderlands 1 a lot. Okay, Borderlands the pre-sequel. The general consensus is that this is the worst Borderlands game. I don't think it's bad by any means, but I definitely understand why it's the lowest regarded. It has the least memorable. It's just the least memorable game in general. Like I can't even pinpoint why it's my least favorite. It just is. This game goes to space for most of its levels. They all take place on one of Pandora's moons, I think. I think it's Pandora's moon. But all the environments, because of that, kind of look too similar. They mostly are just the same moon-looking environment with some differences, like some like fire-looking places maybe. But really, other than that, there's not much diversity. Same with the combat and everything. And you cannot refight the same bosses, which is something fans of Borderlands know is like vital to the experience. The fact that you can farm the bosses, which you can't do in this game. You can only fight them once and then they're gone forever. Yeah, not much to say on it. I've played it the least, so I'll just go ahead and put that in C tier. It's still a decent game. It's just it doesn't live up to the other entries in the series. Okay, so Dead by Daylight. This is a horror multiplayer game where basically the survivors have to try and start up generators and stuff and escape the area before the killer gets them. And the killer is controlled by a real person who can choose between like a different variety of them. It's a lot of fun. All the killers have like their own unique abilities and stuff. You can even get like iconic ones like Freddy Krueger and like Jigsaw and stuff, I think. This game is a little old, so it's pretty simple by like other games. This game was one of like the earlier ones in this genre, so it's kind of simple if you look at it now, but it still is a ton of fun actually, and I still come back to this game sometimes just to have some fun with my friends. Unfortunately, a lot of times when I do though, the servers don't work well at all. Like it takes a solid half hour to get into a game, which a lot of the time makes us just not play it because it's just too much trouble to deal with. So I think because of that, I'll have to put it in B tier. It's still a fun game, it just has its problems for sure. Alright, Friday the 13th. It's a similar type of game, but I think it's a lot better. I think this improved that game a lot. It's newer. so that's part of the reason. This game gives you multiple different ways to escape rather than just fixing the generators. You can either fix up the car, you can fix up a boat, or you can somehow phone the police, and then you can escape to them. And then they also have the feature where you can call in Tommy Jarvis to help, so it resurrects a dead player to play as him. And he has a shotgun, so he's really helpful to have around. And it's just a lot of fun. They added a lot more to keep it fresh longer, so you didn't burn out as quick. Yeah, I think it's just a better version of Dead by Daylight, basically, so I think that's an A tier game. Oh, and one more thing to mention is, while Jason is the only killer you get to play as, the game has every version of Jason from the whole Friday the 13th franchise, so that keeps it changed up as well, because they each have their own abilities and stuff to get good with, and yeah, I think that just even more puts that as an A tier game. So Counting Plus is another game, another VR game made by, it's another game, obviously. It's another game made by Justin Roiland, so you can expect that it's just as funny as Trevor Saves the Universe. The only thing is, this game's a lot shorter. It really only lasts about an hour to like an hour and a half. But it's fun the whole way through. It's a simple little experience. I'll have to put that in A tier. I can't put it up here with Trover because that game is like a way more fleshed out experience. This is kind of just a little VR experience. I don't know. It's fun, but it's short lived. GTA 5. Oh god, I've put so much time into this game. Even to this day, I come back to this, and it came out in 2013. There's so much to love about this game, whether it be the story mode, which is great, but I really added it to this list because of the online component, which is what I mostly come back to these days. The online just keeps on giving. They've added content consistently since 2013, and they just keep adding new things that make it fun to come back to once in a while. However, though, I feel like now they should just go ahead and let this game die and just work on GTA 6 because they have definitely milked this to the furthest extent I think they can. It was great while it lasted, but they definitely need to just let it die at this point. But I had a ton of fun with this game the whole time. I really do think GTA 5 is an S tier game. I mean, it's not often you get a game that you can play for that long and not get sick of it. Okay, so next up we have Beat Saber. This is the final VR game. It's pretty much a spin on Guitar Hero, but for VR. You hold like lightsabers in your hands basically, and you have to chop the notes like in certain directions. But it's a ton of fun to play. It feels so cool hitting these things on beat, and just getting good and playing like expert mode just makes you feel even more cool playing it. Of course, you don't look cool. You look really stupid while you play it, but that doesn't matter because in your head you look really awesome. And yeah, if you have it on PC, you can even somehow get pretty much any song you want off the internet. I don't know exactly how people do that, but I've seen them on YouTube. So yeah, I think this is a A tier game. This is a fun VR game. Not like too much to say about it, but it's a lot of fun for sure. Okay, last but definitely not least, Roblox. Now, I wasn't even sure if I should add this to the list because it's not its own game necessarily. It's one of those games where everyone makes their own levels. Like it's kind of like the community thing for Little Big Planet, but more fleshed out because that's all it is. But because of that, Roblox offers a ton of different things to play. When I was little, I had an insane obsession with this game. I would get home from school and I would play it till the moment I had to go to bed. Without doing any homework, any chores that I should be doing. I would just ignore all my responsibilities and I would play Roblox all day, every day. For me, it just had so many things to enjoy back then. I mean, there was the obbies, which are like obstacle courses. There's like tycoons where you kind of build your own whatever it is in that tycoon. There's combat games. There's all kinds of survival games, building games. It just has a lot to offer for a game that's free, actually. There's microtransactions, but it's free to play it. So I think no matter what anybody says, Roblox belongs in S tier.
Awesome.
Although having played it recently, the games that people are creating these days are not really as fun as what I remember. I don't know if it's just because of the nostalgia or if they just don't make the games that they used to. I mean, I don't know which one it is. I can't tell. Okay, so fortunately, we didn't have anything in the oof category. These are all at least fairly solid games. But yeah, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'm not as familiar with these games, the multiplayer ones, So sorry if I wasn't as in-depth as I was in the last video. But yeah, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you next time whenever I tackle the horror and survival category of this tier list. So anyways, if you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.